stop what you're doing for just a moment. Right now, in this exact second, your brain just made about 17 micro decisions without you even noticing. Whether to keep reading this, whether that noise in the background matters, whether you're comfortable or not. But here's what's wild, and this is going to sound almost impossible until you experience it yourself. Between every single thing that happens to you and how you respond to it, there's a gap, a tiny, almost invisible gap. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. That gap is where your entire life is actually decided. Most people go their whole lives never even knowing this gap exists. They think they're just reacting to life. That when someone disrespects them, getting angry is automatic. When stress hits, feeling overwhelmed is inevitable. When criticism comes, defensiveness is natural. But what if I told you that's not true? What if the most successful, peaceful, and powerful people you've ever met aren't lucky? They've just learned to live inside that gap. Stick with me, because by the time we're done here, you're going to have a completely different relationship with your own mind. You're going to see that tiny space between what happens and how you respond. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. That's when everything changes. The moment that splits two lives. Let me tell you about two friends of mine. We'll call them Marcus and Daniel. Both brilliant guys, both working at the same tech company in Austin. About 6 months ago, they both got the same message from their manager on a Friday afternoon. Need to talk Monday morning. Some concerns about the project direction. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Marcus read that message, and his heart started racing immediately. His mind went into overdrive. This is it. I'm getting fired. I knew I wasn't good enough for this role. Everyone's been judging me. My career is over. By Friday evening, he'd sent 3 emotional emails to his manager, each one more defensive than the last. By Monday, he'd essentially talked himself out of a job that wasn't even in danger. He quit 2 weeks later, burned bridges he'd spent years building, all because of how he reacted to 7 words in a message. Daniel read the exact same message. His heart rate spiked too. He's human, right? But here's what happened differently. He felt that surge of panic, and instead of immediately acting on it, he took 3 deep breaths. 5 seconds, that's all. Then he thought, okay, I don't actually know what this is about. Could be anything. Let me wait and see. He spent the weekend relaxed, came in Monday prepared but calm. Turned out the manager wanted to promote him to lead a different project and needed his input on the transition. Same trigger, same initial fear response. Completely different lives 6 months later. The only difference? Daniel had learned something Marcus hadn't. How to find the space between stimulus and response. The lie. Your brain tells you every day. Here's what most of us believe, and I need you to hear me when I say this is the biggest lie your mind will ever tell you. I can't help how I react. That's just who I am. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you feel rage bubbling up. Well, what do you expect? They're being reckless. Your partner says something critical, and you snap back. They started it. Your boss questions your work, and you get defensive. I have to protect myself. But here's the truth, and neuroscience backs this up completely. Between every stimulus and every response, there is a space. In that space lives your power to choose, and in that choice lives your freedom, your relationships, your career, your peace of mind, basically everything that matters. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and went on to become one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, said it perfectly. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Think about that. This guy endured literal hell on earth, and his breakthrough insight wasn't about the camps. It was about this space, this gap, this moment of choice that exists even in the most horrific circumstances. What's actually happening in your brain, the science part, but I promise it's fascinating. Okay, let's get slightly nerdy for a moment, because understanding this will change how you see yourself forever. When something triggers you, and I mean anything, from a harsh email to a car horn to someone giving you unsolicited advice, here's the sequence that happens in your brain. First, 120 milliseconds. Your amygdala, which is basically your brain's ancient alarm system, detects a potential threat. It doesn't care if it's a lion or a LinkedIn comment. Threat is threat to this primitive part of your brain. By 200 milliseconds, your amygdala has flooded your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes. Your muscles tense. Your breathing gets shallow. Blood flows away from your prefrontal cortex, your smart, rational brain, and toward your limbs, in case you need to fight or run. This is your reactive brain taking over. Here's the crucial part. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, empathy, impulse control, and strategic thinking, takes about 400 to 600 milliseconds to fully activate. Do you see what this means? For roughly half a second, your reactive brain is running the show unless you've trained yourself to bridge that gap. The people who seem naturally calm, the ones who handle crisis with grace, the leaders who make smart decisions under pressure, they haven't been blessed with different brains. They've simply trained themselves to activate their prefrontal cortex faster and more consistently. They've learned to recognize those first physical sensations of reactivity and interrupt the pattern before it takes control. Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor, a neuroscientist who studied her own stroke, discovered something remarkable. The physiological lifespan of an emotion is 90 seconds. 90 seconds. After that, any remaining emotional response is because you're choosing to stay in that loop, whether you realize it or not. You're re-triggering the response with your thoughts, your stories, your internal narrative about what happened. This isn't just interesting science. This is the foundation of every other success skill you'll ever develop. The hidden cost of living on autopilot. Before we go any further into solutions, I need you to really feel the weight of what reactive living is costing you. Because until you understand the full price you're paying, you won't commit to the work required to change it. And trust me, friend, the cost is way higher than you think. In your relationships, every time you react instead of respond, you're making a withdrawal from the trust account of your relationship. When your partner says something that triggers you and you fire back defensively, you're not just having a bad moment. You're teaching them that emotional safety doesn't exist with you. You're programming them to edit themselves, to walk on eggshells, to share less of their real thoughts and feelings. When you react to your kids with impatience, you're not just expressing frustration. You're showing them that you're not a safe place to bring their real problems. They learn to hide their struggles from you, and years later, you wonder why they don't open up. Here's what happens neurologically when you react. Your amygdala hijacks your entire system. In that state, your IQ literally drops by an average of 25 to 30 points. You're dumber when you're reactive, less creative, less empathetic, less capable of seeing solutions. You say things you don't mean. You make decisions you regret. You damage relationships that took years to build. And here's the kicker. There's something called emotional contagion. The other person's brain mirrors your emotional state. Your reactivity literally makes them more reactive too. You create a spiral of escalating negative emotions, and before you know it, a small disagreement becomes a relationship-defining fight. In your career, in your professional life, reactive behavior is even more devastating because the consequences are permanent and visible. That email you sent when you were upset, it's forwarded around. It's evidence. That meeting where you got defensive instead of curious, people remember it and tell stories about it. That moment you interrupted because you felt threatened, it's the reason certain opportunities never come your way. The most successful professionals I know have figured out something crucial. Every single interaction is being evaluated on two levels: competence and emotional safety. People might respect your technical skills, but they'll only trust you with real responsibility if they believe you can stay calm when things get difficult. They need to know that when pressure hits, you'll be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I watched this play out with a colleague, brilliant engineer, let's call her Rachel. Incredible technical skills, but she had a reputation for getting defensive in code reviews. Every suggestion felt like a personal attack to her. Within 2 years, junior developers who managed their emotions better were getting promoted past her, not because they were smarter, but because people trusted them in high-stakes situations. In your relationship with yourself. But honestly, the deepest cost of reactive living is what it does to how you see yourself. Every time you react instead of respond, you're reinforcing a neural pathway that says, I am not in control of my own mind. You're strengthening an identity of someone who is at the mercy of their emotions, their circumstances, other people's behavior. Over time, this creates what psychologists call learned helplessness. You start to believe that your emotional reactions are just who you are, rather than patterns you can change. You tell yourself stories. I'm just not good with conflict. I have a short temper. I'm too sensitive. These aren't truths. They're habits masquerading as identity. And once you accept these stories as truth, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. You stop trying to improve because you've convinced yourself it's impossible. You accept mediocre relationships because you believe conflict is inevitable. You settle for less in your career because you don't trust yourself to handle challenging situations professionally. You end up living a smaller life, not because you lack potential, but because you've never learned to access the potential that exists in that space between what happens and how you respond. The physical cost. Let's talk about your body for a second, because chronic reactivity isn't just emotionally exhausting. It's literally killing you slowly. When you're constantly reactive, your nervous system stays in a perpetual state of hypervigilance. Your cortisol levels remain elevated, which suppresses your immune system, disrupts your sleep, accelerates aging, and increases inflammation throughout your body. Your digestive system struggles because your body is constantly in survival mode rather than rest and digest mode. Your cardiovascular system works overtime, significantly increasing your risk of heart disease and stroke. Studies show that people with poor emotional regulation have 40% higher risk of cardiovascular disease, significantly disrupted sleep patterns, weakened immune response, faster cognitive decline as they age. Reactive living doesn't just damage your relationships and career, it literally shortens your lifespan. The opportunity cost. Here's what gets me the most. The opportunities you'll never even know you missed. Every moment spent in reactivity is a moment not spent in creativity, problem solving, or genuine connection. Every relationship damaged by poor emotional regulation is a network of opportunities lost. Every professional situation mishandled due to reactivity is a door that closes permanently. The promotion you didn't get because someone remembered how you handled stress in that one meeting. The relationship that could have been deep and fulfilling but stayed surface level because emotional safety never developed. The business idea you never pursued because you were too busy being overwhelmed by daily triggers. The life you could be living. The relationships you could be enjoying. The career you could be building. The peace you could be experiencing. All of it remains just outside your reach as long as you remain a prisoner to your reactive patterns. But here's the beautiful truth now. I know that might feel heavy. You might be sitting here thinking about all the times you've reacted poorly, all the damage you've done, all the opportunities you've lost. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is crucial. None of that matters compared to what you do from this moment forward. Your brain has this incredible quality called neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire itself based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. This means that no matter how long you've been reactive, no matter how ingrained your patterns seem, no matter how many times you've tried and failed to change, every single moment offers a fresh opportunity. You're not broken. You're not uniquely damaged. You're not just the way you are. You're simply someone who hasn't yet learned how to access the space between stimulus and response. And that's exactly what we're going to change together. Because here's what the research shows consistently. People who develop emotional regulation skills earn more money, have better relationships, enjoy superior health, and experience significantly less stress and anxiety. They're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They're simply more skilled at managing the most important 6 inches on the planet, the space between their ears. And if they can learn it, so can you. The neuroscience of choice. Understanding your 2 operating systems. All right, let's dive deeper into what's actually happening inside your skull. Because once you understand this, you'll never see yourself the same way again. And I promise, even though we're getting into brain science here, I'm going to make this as practical and relatable as possible. Think of your brain as having 2 different operating systems running simultaneously. kind of like a computer with both a super-fast emergency response program and a slower, more sophisticated strategic planning software. Operating System 1, your survival brain. This is your limbic system, specifically your amygdala and its supporting cast. This system evolved over millions of years when immediate physical threats were a daily reality. If a predator appeared, you needed to react instantly. Think later, survive now. Your amygdala can process a potential threat and trigger a full-body stress response in about 120 to 180 milliseconds. That's faster than you can blink, faster than you can consciously register what's happening. This system doesn't distinguish between actual physical danger and emotional discomfort. When your colleague interrupts you in a meeting, when someone doesn't text back, when you see an unexpected charge on your credit card, your amygdala responds exactly as if you were facing a physical threat. Operating System 2, your strategic brain. This is your prefrontal cortex, your CEO brain, your wise elder, your strategic commander. This is where executive function lives. Impulse control, emotional regulation, long-term planning, empathy, creative problem-solving, and strategic thinking. The prefrontal cortex is incredibly powerful, but it has one critical limitation. It takes roughly 400 to 600 milliseconds to fully come online. This creates what neuroscientists call the reactivity window, that gap where your survival brain is running the show unless you've specifically trained to bridge it. Here's a metaphor that helps. Imagine your amygdala is like a smoke detector, super sensitive, always scanning, instant activation. Your prefrontal cortex is like a fire chief, much more capable of assessing the actual situation and making smart decisions. But it takes a minute to arrive at the scene. If the smoke detector goes off because you burned toast and you immediately evacuate the building and call 911 before the fire chief can assess, you're reacting. If you pause, let the fire chief arrive and assess, you discover it's just burnt toast and you open a window. You're responding. The breakthrough. Your brain can learn new pathways. Here's where it gets exciting, my friend. Through a process called neuroplasticity, you can actually rewire your brain to activate your prefrontal cortex faster and more consistently. Every single time you successfully pause and choose your response instead of reacting automatically, you're strengthening neural pathways that make this choice easier next time. You're literally building new highways in your brain that lead to emotional regulation instead of emotional explosion. Dr. Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin ran fascinating studies on this. They took people with no meditation or emotional regulation training and taught them basic mindfulness techniques. After just 8 weeks, brain scans showed measurable changes in brain structure. The prefrontal cortex literally grew thicker and more connected. The amygdala became less reactive and more regulated. These aren't just functional changes. These are actual physical transformations in your brain that make emotional control your new default, rather than something you have to force. Think about that. In roughly the same time it takes to get moderately good at a new video game, you can fundamentally rewire how your brain processes emotional triggers. The mechanism here is something called cognitive control networks, neural circuits that connect your prefrontal cortex to your limbic system. These are like bridges that allow your rational brain to communicate with and regulate your emotional brain. The stronger these bridges become, the more easily you can maintain emotional equilibrium under pressure. And these networks get stronger every single time you practice pausing, breathing, and choosing your response consciously. Understanding your emotional operating system. Now, let's talk about something most people never learn: how to recognize your own emotional patterns before they hijack you. Most people live with almost zero emotional awareness. They go from calm to furious, from confident to anxious, from peaceful to overwhelmed, without any conscious recognition of the transition. It's like driving a car without a dashboard. You don't know you're running out of gas until the engine dies. By the time they realize they're upset, they're already in full reaction mode, saying and doing things they'll regret later. Developing emotional awareness starts with understanding your personal trigger fingerprint, your unique trigger map. Every person has specific situations, words, or behaviors that consistently activate their stress response. For some people, it's feeling ignored or dismissed. For others, it's being interrupted or having their expertise questioned. Some people get triggered by feeling rushed, while others react to perceived unfairness or disrespect. Your triggers aren't random. They're usually connected to your core values, past experiences, or unconscious fears. When someone or something threatens what you value most, whether that's respect, security, competence, or connection, your brain interprets this as a survival threat and activates your defensive systems. Let me give you an example from my own life. I used to get incredibly triggered whenever someone questioned my preparation or planning. Looking back, I realized it connected to a deep fear of being seen as incompetent or careless. Once I understood that pattern, I could catch it early. Oh, this is my competence trigger activating. They're not actually attacking me. They're just asking a question. Here's a powerful exercise. For the next 7 days, every time you notice yourself feeling frustrated, defensive, angry, or overwhelmed, immediately ask yourself 3 questions. What exactly just happened? Just the facts, no interpretation. What story am I telling myself about what happened? Notice your interpretation. What deeper value or need feels threatened right now? What does this touch? Don't judge your answers. Just observe them with curiosity, like you're a scientist studying a fascinating specimen. You'll start to notice patterns. Maybe you consistently get triggered when people don't follow through on commitments because you deeply value reliability. Maybe you react strongly to criticism because you have an unconscious belief that your worth is tied to being perfect. Maybe you get defensive when your expertise is questioned because competence is core to your identity. These insights are gold. They give you advance warning of situations where you'll need to be extra conscious about your response. Your body's early warning system. Here's something crucial. Your body always knows before your mind does that you're getting triggered. Your jaw might tighten. Your shoulders might rise toward your ears. Your breathing might become shallow, or your stomach might clench. These physical sensations are your early warning system, but only if you're paying attention to them. I want you to try something right now. Take 30 seconds and just notice what's happening in your body. Are your muscles tense or relaxed? Is your breathing deep or shallow? Is your jaw clenched or loose? Are your shoulders raised or dropped? This practice is called body scanning, and it's one of the most powerful tools for developing emotional awareness. Every hour or two throughout your day, take 30 seconds to check in with your physical state. The goal isn't to fix anything. It's just to notice. You're developing awareness. You're learning to catch emotional activation in its early stages when you still have maximum choice about your response. I had a client, let's call him James, who discovered that his first signal of stress was his hands forming into fists. Just that awareness changed everything for him. Now, when he notices his hands clenching during a conversation, he knows to pause and take a breath before speaking. That one physical cue has saved him from countless reactive moments. Understanding your personal stress patterns. Some people's stress builds gradually throughout the day until they explode over something minor in the evening. Others handle major challenges well, but get triggered by unexpected disruptions. Some people's emotional regulation is heavily affected by hunger, lack of sleep, or overstimulation. Start tracking your emotional patterns in relation to these variables. Are you more reactive when you're hungry? I know I am. Hangry is real, folks. Do you lose emotional control more easily when you're overstimulated by noise or crowds? Are you more likely to react poorly to criticism early in the morning or late at night? This isn't about making excuses for poor behavior. It's about understanding your optimal conditions for emotional regulation and planning accordingly. If you know you're more reactive when you're tired, maybe don't have difficult conversations at 10 p.m. If you know you're more easily triggered when hungry, keep snacks available and schedule important meetings after meals. If you know crowds overstimulate you, build in quiet time after busy social events. You're not trying to eliminate all triggers. That's impossible. You're trying to manage your internal state so you have maximum resources available when triggers do appear. The observer perspective, your superpower. The most advanced level of awareness is what psychologists call metacognition, thinking about thinking. This is the ability to observe your own mental processes in real time instead of being lost in them. Imagine you're watching a movie of your life, but you're also aware that you're watching it. You can see the character, you, having thoughts and emotions, but you're not completely identified with them. You have perspective. This observer perspective is incredibly powerful because it automatically creates space between you and your emotional reactions. When you can observe your thoughts and emotions instead of being consumed by them, you're already well on your way to choosing your response. You notice thoughts like, I'm telling myself that he did this on purpose, or I'm making this situation more dramatic than it needs to be, or I'm assuming the worst-case scenario without any evidence. Here's the key insight. Thoughts and emotions are just information. They don't have to control your behavior unless you choose to let them. Let me give you a real-world example. Last month, I got an email from a collaborator that felt curt and dismissive. My immediate thought was, she's upset with me. I must have done something wrong. This relationship is damaged. But because I've trained the observer perspective, I caught myself. Wait, that's a story I'm creating. The actual fact is, She sent a brief email. Everything else is my interpretation. She might be busy. She might be stressed about something unrelated. I'm choosing to make this about me. That observer perspective completely changed my emotional state and my response. Instead of sending a defensive or anxious reply, I sent a simple, friendly response and moved on with my day. Turns out she was dealing with a family emergency and apologized later for being brief. My interpretation would have been completely wrong. The key to developing this observer perspective is practice without judgment. Every time you catch yourself in a reactive state, instead of beating yourself up for reacting, celebrate yourself for noticing. Awareness itself is the first step toward change. You can't change what you can't see, but once you can see it clearly, change becomes not just possible, but inevitable. The pause that changes everything. Now we get to the practical heart of response mastery, the ability to create a conscious pause between stimulus and response. This isn't about counting to 10 like you were taught as a kid. This isn't about taking a time out. This is about training your nervous system to automatically create space for conscious choice, even in high-pressure situations. This single skill will transform every area of your life. I'm not exaggerating. The sacred second. That crucial moment when you recognize you've been triggered, but before you've reacted, I call this the sacred second. In that second, you have the opportunity to activate your prefrontal cortex and choose your response consciously. But here's what most people don't realize. This second isn't just available sometimes. It's available every single time if you know how to access it. Let me teach you the most powerful technique I know. The 4-part reset. The moment you notice any sign of emotional activation, whether it's physical tension, mental reactivity, or the urge to respond immediately, you do this. Part 1. Name it. 1 second. Silently say to yourself, I'm noticing anger, or I'm feeling defensive, or I'm experiencing the urge to interrupt. This simple act of labeling activates your prefrontal cortex and creates psychological distance from the emotion. Research shows that labeling emotions reduces amygdala reactivity by up to 30% almost immediately. Part 2. Breathe it. 3 seconds. Take 1 deep breath. In through your nose for 3 seconds, out through your mouth for 3 seconds. This isn't just about relaxation. Deep breathing activates your vagus nerve, which sends a direct signal to your brain, we're safe, we can think clearly now. Part 3. Ground it. 1 second. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the weight of your body in your chair. Feel your hands resting on your desk or lap. This physical grounding brings you out of your head, where anxiety lives, and into your body, where calm and strength exist. Part 4. Choose it. 1 second. Ask yourself one question. What would my wisest self do right now? This question immediately shifts you from reactive thinking to strategic thinking. Total time? 6 seconds. That's all it takes to bridge the gap between your amygdala's alarm and your prefrontal cortex's wisdom. But here's the key. You have to train it when you're calm. Most people try to use breathing techniques only when they're already activated. That's like trying to learn to swim while you're drowning. Here's what I want you to do. Practice the 4-part reset 10 times every morning when you're completely relaxed. Sit quietly. Go through the sequence 10 times and really feel each part. This programs your nervous system to associate this pattern with calmness and control. Then, when you're actually triggered, your body will remember, oh, we've done this before. We know what to do. Real-world application. The pause in action. Let me show you what this looks like in real situations. Scenario 1. The criticism. Your manager says, I'm not sure this approach is going to work. Old reactive pattern. Immediate defensiveness. Well, this is how we've always done it. Or, I spent hours on this. Or, why didn't you say something earlier? New response pattern. Name it. I'm feeling defensive. 1 second. Breathe it. Deep breath in and out. 3 seconds. Ground it. Feel your feet on the floor. 1 second. Choose it. What would my wisest self do? 1 second. Respond. I appreciate you bringing that up. Help me understand your concern so we can find the best solution. Total pause. 6 seconds. Total transformation. Massive. Scenario 2. The interruption. You're in a meeting, mid-sentence, and someone cuts you off. Old reactive pattern, frustration, talking louder, or shutting down completely. New response pattern. Name it. I'm noticing irritation. Breathe it. 1 deep breath. Ground it. Feel your chair supporting you. Choose it. What serves everyone here? Respond. Pause gracefully. Let them finish. Then, I want to make sure we capture both perspectives. Can I finish my thought? And then we can explore your point. You've just demonstrated emotional maturity that people remember. Scenario 3, the text that never came. You texted someone important 3 hours ago. No response. Your mind starts spiraling. Old reactive pattern. Anxiety. Assumptions. Maybe sending follow-up texts that sound needy or passive-aggressive. New response pattern. Name it. I'm creating a story that they're ignoring me. Breathe it. 3 deep breaths. Ground it. Notice where you are physically. Choose it. What's most likely true? Respond. Recognize they're probably just busy. Continue with your day. Send 1 brief, friendly follow-up ball later if needed. You've just saved yourself hours of unnecessary anxiety and prevented potentially damaging your relationship with neediness. The 30-day challenge. Building your pause muscle. Here's how to make this automatic. For the next 30 days, I want you to practice the pause with low-stakes situations. These are your training grounds for when stakes are high. When your computer loads slowly, pause before reacting with frustration. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause before honking or cursing. When you have to wait in line longer than expected, pause before getting impatient. When someone asks you a question while you're focused, pause before responding with irritation. Every minor irritation is an opportunity to strengthen the neural pathways that will serve you when it really matters. Track your progress. Keep a small notebook or use your phone. Each day, note 1 situation where you successfully paused instead of reacting. Just 1. By day 30, you'll have 30 examples of proof that you're changing. And here's what's beautiful. By the time you face a major trigger, a real conflict, a serious criticism, a genuine crisis, your brain will have practiced this pause hundreds of times. It will be available to you automatically. Beyond the pause, advanced emotional regulation. All right, friend, you've learned to pause. You understand the neuroscience. You're starting to catch yourself before you react. That's incredible progress, and honestly, that alone puts you ahead of 90% of people. But now, we're going to take this to the next level. We're going to explore techniques that separate people who occasionally respond well from those who maintain emotional mastery even in the most challenging situations. This is where you become truly unshakable. Emotional surfing, riding the wave instead of being crushed by it. Here's something most people get wrong about emotions. They think the goal is to not feel them, to suppress them, to push them away. But that's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes enormous effort, and eventually it's going to explode to the surface. Instead, I'm going to teach you to surf your emotions. When you feel anger, anxiety, or frustration building, instead of fighting it or being consumed by it, you learn to ride it like a surfer rides a wave. You observe it with curious detachment. Here's how emotional surfing works in practice. The moment you notice a strong emotion arising, immediately shift into scientist mode. Say to yourself, and I mean actually say it, even if just in your mind, I'm noticing heat in my chest and throat. My breathing is getting faster. My shoulders are rising. This is what anger feels like in my body. Interesting. This scientific observation activates your prefrontal cortex and prevents the emotion from hijacking your entire system. You're experiencing the emotion fully without being controlled by it. Let me tell you about my friend Elena. She's a cardiac surgeon, literally holds people's hearts in her hands. She told me something fascinating. In the operating room, when something goes wrong, she feels the spike of fear. Her heart races, adrenaline floods her system. But she's trained herself to observe it almost clinically. That's adrenaline. My body is preparing me to act. Good. Now let's use this energy to solve the problem. She doesn't suppress the fear. She doesn't pretend it's not there. She surfs it, and that's why she's brilliant under pressure. Here's the key insight. All emotions are temporary and self-limiting if you don't amplify them with reactive thinking. Anger naturally lasts about 90 seconds if you don't feed it with thoughts about how wrong the other person is. Anxiety naturally dissipates if you don't catastrophize about worst-case scenarios. Fear naturally transforms into focused energy if you don't tell yourself stories about all the terrible things that could happen. The wave will come. The wave will peak. The wave will pass. Your job is to stay on the board. The breath, your nervous system's remote control. Let's talk about something you're doing right now without even thinking about it. Breathing. Your breath is the only function that's both voluntary and involuntary. You breathe automatically, but you can also control it consciously, and this makes it a bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind, between your thinking brain and your feeling body. When you control your breathing deliberately, you can literally reprogram your entire physiological state in real time. But here's what's wild. Different breathing patterns create different states. Pattern 1, box breathing for intense stress. This is what Navy SEALs use before high-stakes operations. It's called box breathing because each phase is equal, like the four sides of a box. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold full for 4 counts. Breathe out for 4 counts. Hold empty for 4 counts. Repeat for 5 to 10 cycles. This pattern balances your autonomic nervous system, reduces cortisol production, and activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. After just 2 minutes of box breathing, you'll feel noticeably calmer and clearer. Pattern 2, Extended exhale for anxiety. When you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, make your exhale twice as long as your inhale. Breathe in for 3 counts. Breathe out for 6 counts. Repeat for 10 cycles. This activates your vagus nerve and sends immediate calming signals to your brain. It's physiologically impossible to stay in high anxiety while doing extended exhale breathing. Try it right now. You'll feel the shift. Pattern 3. Energizing breath for low energy. When you need focus or energy, flip the ratio. Breathe in for 5 counts, breathe out for 3 counts, repeat for 10 cycles. Longer inhales energize your system. Use this before presentations, important conversations, or when you need mental clarity. I keep these patterns on a note in my phone. Different tools for different situations. You're building an emotional regulation toolkit. Cognitive reappraisal, the art of instant reframing. Here's something that's going to sound almost too simple to be powerful. Most of your emotional suffering comes not from what happens, but from the story you tell yourself about what happens. Your mind is constantly creating narratives about events, and these narratives determine your emotional state more than the actual events themselves. Let me show you what I mean. The event. Your boss sends you a message. Can we talk tomorrow morning? Story option A. Oh no, I'm in trouble. They're unhappy with my work. I might be getting fired. I'm not good enough for this job. Emotional result. Anxiety, fear, sleepless night, defensive energy the next day. Story option B. They probably want my input on something, or they're giving me a new opportunity, or they just need to clarify something simple. Emotional result. Calm curiosity, good sleep, open energy the next day. Same event. Completely different experiences. The only difference is the story. The skill of cognitive reappraisal is learning to consciously choose stories that serve you better. The 3-story method. Whenever you find yourself upset about a situation, force yourself to generate 3 different interpretations. Story 1, your automatic interpretation. This is the first story your reactive mind created. Usually, it's the most negative or threatening interpretation. Story 2, the most generous interpretation. What would you think if you assumed everyone involved had positive intentions and was doing their best? Story 3, the most empowering interpretation. What story about this situation would leave you feeling most capable and motivated to create a positive outcome? Let me give you a real example from my life last week. The event. A friend canceled dinner plans an hour before we were supposed to meet. Story 1, automatic. They don't value my time. They don't really care about our friendship. I'm not a priority to them. Story 2, generous. Something important must have come up. They're probably dealing with something stressful. They feel bad about canceling. Story 3, empowering. I just got an unexpected free evening. I can use this time for that project I've been wanting to work on. Also, this gives me information about setting better boundaries with last-minute changes. Notice that all 3 stories could be true. I have no idea what's actually going on in my friend's life, but they create completely different emotional states and action options. The first story leads to resentment and damaged friendship. The second leads to understanding and patience. The third leads to productive use of time and boundary setting. You have the power to choose which story you believe and act from. The identity shift, becoming someone who responds. Here's where we get to the deepest level of transformation. Everything we've talked about so far, the techniques, the practices, the strategies, they're all helpful. But the ultimate shift happens when you stop being someone who uses response techniques and become someone who is a conscious responder. This is an identity shift, and identity drives behavior far more powerfully than willpower or discipline ever could. Right now, you might see yourself as someone who struggles with emotional reactivity, or has a temper, or gets defensive easily. These aren't truths about who you are. They're habits masquerading as identity. But here's the beautiful thing. Identity is not fixed. You can consciously create a new identity through deliberate practice and repetition. Step 1. Declare your new identity. Stop focusing on what you want to stop doing. Focus on who you want to become. Instead of, I want to stop being reactive, declare, I'm someone who responds to challenges with wisdom and grace. Instead of, I want to stop getting defensive, declare, I am someone who receives feedback with curiosity and appreciation. Instead of, I want to stop losing my temper, declare, I am someone who maintains emotional equilibrium even under pressure. Write these declarations down. Say them out loud every morning. This isn't just positive thinking. This is identity programming. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you tell it and what actually happens. When you repeatedly declare your new identity with emotion and conviction, your subconscious begins to accept it as reality and starts aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with that identity. Step 2. Gather evidence for your new identity. Your mind is constantly looking for evidence to support your current identity. If you believe you're reactive, you'll notice and remember every time you react, and you'll minimize or forget times when you respond well. To shift your identity, you need to consciously gather evidence for your new identity while reinterpreting evidence for your old identity. Every time you successfully pause before responding, celebrate it as evidence that you're becoming someone who responds wisely. Every time you reframe a situation positively, acknowledge it as proof that you're someone who finds opportunity in challenge. Keep a response wins journal. Every evening, write down one moment from that day where you responded instead of reacted. Just one. By the end of 30 days, you'll have 30 pieces of evidence that you're not who you used to be. And equally important, when you do react poorly, which will happen, you're human, don't use it as evidence that you haven't changed. Instead, reframe it. I'm someone who's committed to continuous improvement in emotional mastery. This reaction gives me valuable information about my triggers. Step 3. Environmental design. Your environment constantly influences your identity through the people you spend time with, the content you consume, and the reminders you see. Surround yourself with people who model emotional maturity. Read books and listen to podcasts that reinforce these principles. Create physical reminders in your environment. I have a small stone on my desk that says, pause. Every time I see it, it reminds me who I'm becoming. My client, Jennifer, changed her phone lock screen to say, respond, don't react. Small environmental cues program your subconscious mind. Step 4. Mental rehearsal. Your brain creates neural pathways based on what you repeatedly imagine just as much as what you repeatedly experience. Every day, spend 5 to 10 minutes visualizing yourself responding beautifully to challenging situations. See yourself receiving criticism with curiosity. Imagine yourself staying calm when someone is aggressive. Picture yourself handling unexpected problems with grace and creativity. Make these visualizations vivid. See the situation from your own eyes, not like watching a movie. Include sensory details, what you see, hear, feel. Most importantly, focus on the identity you're embodying. You're not just practicing techniques, you're becoming someone who naturally responds with wisdom. Putting it all together, the response mastery stack. Let me give you a real-world scenario showing how all these techniques work together. Situation: you're in a team meeting. You've spent weeks on a proposal. A colleague publicly criticizes it in a way that feels dismissive. What happens in your body? Heart rate spikes, face feels hot, jaw clenches, urge to defend yourself or attack back. Old reactive, you would immediately defend, dismiss their concerns, or get visibly upset. New response mastery, you. Step 1, body awareness, 2 seconds. I'm noticing heat in my face. My jaw just clenched. That's my defensiveness trigger activating. Step 2, the pause, 6 seconds. Name it. I'm feeling defensive. Breathe it. 1 box breath, in 4, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. Ground it. Feel your feet on the floor. Choose it. What would my wisest self do? Step 3, cognitive reappraisal, 3 seconds. Generous interpretation. They have concerns that might actually improve this proposal. Empowering interpretation. This is a chance to demonstrate my emotional maturity and collaborative spirit. Step 4, identity-aligned response, immediate. Because you've been training your identity as someone who receives feedback with curiosity, your natural response is, I appreciate you bringing that up, Jennifer. Help me understand your specific concerns. I want to make sure we're creating the best possible solution here. Total time, 11 seconds from trigger to response. Total transformation, massive. You've just demonstrated emotional intelligence, kept the focus on the project's success rather than ego, gathered potentially valuable information, modeled leadership that people remember, strengthened your identity as someone who responds wisely. The daily practice, making it automatic. Here's your daily practice structure to make all of this automatic. Morning, 10 minutes. Declare your identity statements. Practice box breathing, 10 cycles. Visualize responding wisely to one challenging situation you might face today throughout the day. Body scan every 2 hours. 30 seconds. Practice the pause with minor irritations. Use cognitive reappraisal when triggered. Evening, 5 minutes. Journal one response win from the day. Reflect on one moment where you reacted. What did you learn? Set intention for tomorrow. Total time investment, 15 minutes per day. Total life transformation, immeasurable. The beautiful thing? After 30 to 60 days of consistent practice, most of this becomes automatic. You won't have to think about techniques anymore. You'll just naturally create space between stimulus and response because that's who you've become. Your mind is a meaning-making machine. Here's something that might blow your mind a little. Nothing in life has inherent meaning. Events just happen. Your mind is what assigns meaning to those events, and that meaning determines your entire emotional experience. Let me show you what I mean with something that happened to me last year. I was supposed to speak at a conference. Big opportunity, months of preparation. 3 days before the event, they canceled my session. Just canceled it. Budget cuts, they said. Now, I could have made this mean they don't value my expertise. I wasted months of preparation. This is humiliating. My reputation is damaged. If I'd chosen that interpretation, I would have spent weeks feeling angry, embarrassed, and resentful. Or I could make it mean I just got 3 unexpected days back in my schedule. I can use this material for something even better. This frees me up for opportunities that might be more aligned with where I'm heading. Same event. 2 completely different emotional experiences. 2 completely different action paths. The revolutionary insight here is this. You can choose your interpretations consciously. You don't have to accept the first story your mind creates about what's happening. This is the art of reframing, and honestly, it's one of the most powerful tools for emotional mastery you'll ever develop. The anatomy of interpretation. Let's break down how your mind actually creates meaning, because once you see this process, you can intervene in it. Step 1. Something happens, a fact, an event, an observable reality. Step 2. Your mind instantly creates a story about what it means, usually based on past experiences, fears, or insecurities. Step 3. That story generates an emotion, anxiety, anger, excitement, peace. Step 4. That emotion drives your behavior, reaction, or response. Most people never separate step 1 from step 2. They think the story is the fact, but it's not. Fact. Your partner hasn't responded to your text in 4 hours. Story. They're upset with me. Or they're losing interest. Or they're busy. Or they're probably dealing with something stressful. The fact is neutral. The story is what creates your emotional experience. Here's a simple exercise that will change how you see reality. For the next week, whenever you notice yourself getting upset, pause and complete this sentence. The fact is blank, and the story I'm telling myself is blank. Example. The fact is, my boss didn't invite me to that meeting, and the story I'm telling myself is that they don't value my input. Just separating fact from story gives you power. Because once you see that it's a story, you realize you can choose a different one. The 3 lenses. Mastering perspective shifts. I'm going to give you 3 powerful perspective shifts that can transform how you experience challenging situations. Think of these as different lenses you can look through. Each one reveals something different about the same situation. Lens 1. The zoom-out lens, temporal perspective. When you're in the middle of a challenging situation, it feels permanent and all-consuming. This lens helps you see it in context. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? That argument with your partner that feels so important right now? In 5 years, you probably won't even remember what it was about. That presentation that has you stressed? One of hundreds you'll give in your career. That embarrassing moment? A tiny blip in the context of your entire life. I'm not saying your current feelings don't matter, they do. But this perspective prevents you from making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. My friend Carlos uses a version of this I love. Whenever he's upset, he imagines himself at 85 years old, looking back at this moment. He asks, what would 85-year-old Carlos want me to do right now? Almost always the answer is, be kind, be patient. Focus on what really matters. Don't sweat the small stuff. Lens 2. The other person lens. Empathy perspective. This one's powerful for relationship conflicts. Instead of staying locked in your own perspective, deliberately imagine the situation from the other person's point of view. Not to excuse poor behavior, but to understand it. Your perspective. My colleague interrupted me in the meeting. They don't respect me. They're trying to make me look bad. Their perspective. I got excited about an idea and jumped in without thinking. I'm actually enthusiastic about this project and want to contribute. I didn't realize I was interrupting. I just got caught up in the moment. Which perspective creates space for a productive response? Which one leads to defensiveness and conflict? Here's the key. You don't have to know what they're actually thinking to use this lens. Just imagining possible alternative explanations for their behavior shifts your emotional state and opens up better response options. Lens 3. The growth lens. Anti-fragile perspective. This is my favorite, and it's based on Nassim Taleb's concept of anti-fragility. Things that actually get stronger from stress and challenge. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this making possible for me? Every difficult situation contains seeds of growth if you know how to extract them. Criticism becomes strength training for your confidence and communication skills. Rejection becomes clarity about where you don't belong, pointing you toward where you do. Failure becomes valuable data that brings you closer to success. Conflict becomes practice for your emotional regulation and relationship skills. I started using this lens about 3 years ago, and it completely changed my relationship with difficulty. Now, when I face a challenge, part of me actually gets curious. Okay, what's the gift here? What capability is this situation developing in me? Last month, a major project fell through. Old me would have spiraled into frustration and self-doubt. New me thought, this is training me to handle setbacks with grace. This is making me more resilient. This is forcing me to explore options I wouldn't have considered otherwise. And you know what? Within 2 weeks, that failure led to 3 new opportunities that were actually better aligned with my goals. The Reframe Library. Situations and their transformations. Let me give you a library of common triggering situations and powerful reframes you can use. These aren't just positive thinking. They're perspective shifts that are often more accurate than your initial interpretation. Situation. Someone gives you critical feedback. Reactive interpretation. They're attacking me. They don't appreciate my work. I need to defend myself. Powerful reframe. They're giving me information that could make me better. They care enough to be honest with me. This is valuable data I can use or discard based on its merit. Situation. You make a mistake in front of others. Reactive interpretation. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. This is humiliating. I've damaged my reputation permanently. Powerful reframe. I'm human, and everyone knows that. How I handle this mistake matters more than the mistake itself. This is a chance to demonstrate accountability and grace under pressure. Situation. Someone cancels plans. Last minute, reactive interpretation. They don't respect my time. I'm not important to them. This is inconsiderate. Powerful reframe. Something important must have come up. I just got unexpected free time. This gives me information about setting clearer boundaries in the future. Situation. Your idea gets rejected. Reactive interpretation. They don't value my input. I'm not creative enough. I should stop contributing ideas. Powerful reframe. Not every idea will land, and that's part of the creative process. The more ideas I share, the more I refine my thinking. This clears space for my next, possibly better idea. Situation. Someone gives you critical feedback. Reactive interpretation. They're attacking me. They don't appreciate my work. I need to defend myself. Powerful reframe. They're giving me information that could make me better. They care enough to be honest with me. This is valuable data I can use or discard based on its merit. Situation. You make a mistake in front of others. Reactive interpretation. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. This is humiliating. I've damaged my reputation permanently. Powerful reframe. I'm human, and everyone knows that. How I handle this mistake matters more than the mistake itself. This is a chance to demonstrate accountability and grace under pressure. Situation. Someone cancels plans. Last minute, reactive interpretation. They don't respect my time. I'm not important to them. This is inconsiderate. Powerful reframe. Something important must have come up. I just got unexpected free time. This gives me information about setting clearer boundaries in the future. Situation. Your idea gets rejected. Reactive interpretation. They don't value my input. I'm not creative enough. I should stop contributing ideas. Powerful reframe. Not every idea will land, and that's part of the creative process. The more ideas I share, the more I refine my thinking. This clears space for my next, possibly better idea. Situation. You're stuck in traffic. Reactive interpretation. This is wasting my time. I'm going to be late. This is so frustrating. Powerful reframe. This is bonus time I can use to listen to that podcast I've been meaning to catch up on, or practice breathing exercises, or just be present without having to do anything. Notice a pattern? The reframe doesn't deny reality or suppress emotions. It simply chooses an interpretation that serves you better. The story. Audit. Cleaning up your mental narratives. We all have recurring stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we can handle, and how the world works. Many of these stories are outdated, inaccurate, or actively holding us back. Time for an audit. Common limiting stories. I'm not good with conflict. Reality check. You haven't yet developed strong conflict resolution skills, but skills are learned, not fixed traits. I'm too sensitive. Reality check. You feel things deeply, which is actually a strength when paired with emotional regulation skills. I have a short temper. Reality check. You have a pattern of reactive responses that you learned, and patterns can be rewired. People always let me down. Reality check. You remember the disappointments more vividly than the times people showed up, creating confirmation bias. I'm bad at public speaking. Reality check. You haven't practiced enough to feel comfortable yet, but every speaker started exactly where you are. Here's your assignment. Write down 3 stories you tell yourself about who you are or what you can't do. Then for each one, write. A more accurate and empowering story would be this. Isn't about lying to yourself. It's about questioning whether your old stories are actually true and choosing narratives that open up possibility rather than shut it down. Identity. Level reframing. Who are you in the story? Here's the ultimate reframe, the one that changes everything. In the story of your life, are you the victim or the hero? Victims focus on what's happening to them and how unfair or difficult it is. Their narrative is about forces outside their control, about being at the mercy of circumstances, other people, or bad luck. Heroes focus on how they're going to respond and what they're going to learn from the experience. Their narrative is about agency, growth, and rising to meet challenges. Same life, different story, completely different experience. Let me be clear. Choosing the hero narrative doesn't mean denying that bad things happen or that you've been genuinely hurt or wronged. It means choosing where you place your focus and energy. Victim narrative. My childhood was difficult, and that's why I struggle with relationships now. It's not my fault. Hero narrative. My childhood was difficult, and I'm choosing to break those patterns. I'm becoming someone who creates healthy relationships despite not having great models growing up. That makes me stronger, not weaker. Victim narrative. My industry is changing, and I can't keep up. Technology is making my skills obsolete. I'm stuck. Hero narrative. My industry is evolving, which means new opportunities are emerging. I'm choosing to develop new skills and adapt. I'm someone who thrives during transitions. See the difference? The hero narrative doesn't ignore difficulty. It transforms difficulty into fuel for growth. The practice. Daily reframing training. Here's how to make reframing automatic. Morning reframe. 3 minutes. Look at your day ahead. Identify one challenging situation you might face. Write down the reactive interpretation your mind might create. The empowering reframe. You choose instead real-time reframing. Throughout the day, whenever you notice yourself getting upset, pause and ask, what's the fact and what's the story? What's a more generous/empowering way to interpret this? Will this matter in 5 years? Evening reframe, 2 minutes. Review your day. Find one difficult moment. Write the story you initially told yourself. A more empowering reframe. What you learned about your triggers or patterns. After 30 days of this practice, reframing becomes your natural response to difficulty. Your brain literally rewires to look for empowering interpretations first instead of reactive ones. The ultimate reframe. Everything is feedback. Here's the perspective shift that ties everything together. Nothing that happens is for or against you. It's all just feedback. Someone criticizes you. Feedback about how you're being perceived and what you might refine. Someone praises you. Feedback about what's working and what to continue. Something fails. Feedback about what needs adjustment. Something succeeds. Feedback about what's effective. When you adopt this perspective, nothing can really hurt you emotionally because you're always in learning mode. You're always gathering data. You're always growing. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. You do. But those emotions become information too. Feedback about your values, your boundaries, your nervous system's current state. You become like a scientist running experiments with your life. Some experiments work, some don't, but they all provide valuable data for the next iteration. This is freedom. This is mastery. This is what it means to respond instead of react, not just behaviorally, but at the level of meaning-making itself. From theory to permanent change. Your 90-day blueprint. All right, friend, We've covered a lot of ground together. You understand the neuroscience. You've learned the techniques. You know how to pause, reframe, and choose your responses consciously. But here's the truth. Knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. You can understand everything we've talked about and still find yourself reacting the same way you always have unless you create a systematic approach to rewiring your brain. And that's exactly what we're about to do. This isn't about trying harder or relying on willpower. This is about creating a structured 90-day protocol that makes conscious response your new default, not something you have to force. The reason we're using 90 days is based on neuroscience research, showing it takes approximately 66 to 90 days of consistent practice to create automatic neural pathways. You're literally rebuilding your brain's default response patterns during this time. Think of this as a workout program, but instead of building muscle, you're building neural pathways. Instead of getting physically stronger, you're getting emotionally stronger. Let me break this down into 3 30-day phases, each with a specific focus. Phase 1, days 1 to 30. Foundation, building the awareness muscle. Your primary focus this month is simple but profound. Catch yourself before you react. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to handle every situation flawlessly. You're simply trying to increase your awareness of that gap between stimulus and response. Daily practice structure. Morning ritual, 8 minutes. Minutes 1 to 3. Box breathing, 10 cycles. Sit comfortably. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. Do this 10 times. You're programming your nervous system to associate this pattern with calm and control. Minutes 4 to 6. Identity declaration. Say out loud, I am someone who responds with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion. I am someone who stays calm under pressure. I am someone who chooses my responses consciously. Feel these words as you say them. Minutes 7 to 8. Body scan. Notice your physical state right now. Shoulders, jaw, breath. You're building the awareness that will help you catch triggers early later in the day. Throughout your day, practice what I call micro pauses with minor irritations. These are your training ground. Computer loading slowly. Pause. Take one breath before continuing. Someone cuts in front of you in line? Pause. Notice your irritation without acting on it. Email tone feels curt? Pause. Separate fact from story. Traffic light turns red? Pause. Use it as a breath reminder. Every single one of these small moments is strengthening the neural pathway between stimulus and response. You're literally rewiring your brain with each micro pause. Evening practice, 5 minutes. Response journal. Every evening, write down answers to these 3 questions. When did I notice myself getting triggered today? Just the facts. What happened? How did I respond? Did I pause, react, catch myself mid-reaction? What did I learn about my triggers, my patterns, my progress? Here's what's crucial. Don't judge your performance. Simply observe and learn. Some days, you'll catch yourself before reacting. Celebrate that. Some days, you'll catch yourself mid-reaction. Celebrate that too, because awareness is the first step. Some days, you'll only catch yourself after you've already reacted. That's still progress, because you're developing awareness. The goal this month isn't perfection. It's simply noticing the gap more often. Week by week milestones, Week 1, you'll start catching yourself after you've already reacted. This is normal and good. Week 2, you'll occasionally catch yourself during a reaction and be able to course correct mid-conversation. Week 3, you'll increasingly catch yourself before reacting and make conscious choices about your response. Week 4, the pause will start to feel more natural, less forced. You'll notice yourself automatically creating space between trigger and response. Common challenges. This phase, I keep forgetting to practice. Set alarms on your phone, 3 per day, 8 a.m. morning ritual, 12 p.m. midday check-in, 9 p.m. evening journal. Make it impossible to forget. I'm not seeing progress. You are. You just can't see it yet. Progress in neural rewiring is invisible for the first 2 to 3 weeks, then suddenly becomes obvious. Trust the process. I reacted badly and feel like a failure. Reframe this immediately. You're not failing, you're learning. Every reaction teaches you something about your triggers. Use it as data, not evidence of inadequacy. Phase 2, days 31 to 60. Development, mastering the techniques. Now that you've built basic awareness and pause skills, you're ready to add sophistication. This month focuses on advanced regulation techniques and real-world application. Daily practice structure. Morning ritual, 12 minutes. Minutes, 1 to 4. Extended exhale breathing, 15 cycles. This month, you're adding variety. Breathe in for 3, out for 6. This activates your vagus nerve and builds your capacity for calm. Minutes 5 to 10. Visualization practice. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself facing a specific, challenging situation you might encounter today. See yourself noticing the trigger, taking a pause, choosing a wise response. Make it vivid. See the person's face, hear the words, feel your calm confidence. You're programming your brain for success before the situation even happens. Minutes 11 to 12. Intention setting. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? How do I want to show up in my relationships and work? Set a clear intention. Throughout your day, now you're actively seeking practice opportunities. Volunteer for that slightly uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding. Speak up in a meeting where you'd normally stay quiet. Set a boundary with someone who typically triggers you. Have a difficult conversation with patience and curiosity. You're not avoiding triggers anymore. You're using them as training equipment. Each one makes you stronger. Real-time reframing practice. Every time something triggers you this month, immediately practice the 3-lens reframe. Zoom out lens. Will this matter in 5 years? Other person lens. What might be happening for them? Growth lens. What's this making possible for me? Write these 3 questions on a card and keep it in your pocket or on your desk. Evening practice, 7 minutes. Enhanced response journal. What was my biggest trigger today? What lens helped me reframe it? One example of me embodying my new identity. Focus on who you were, not just what you did. What technique worked best today? Breathing, reframing, body awareness? Week by week milestones. Week 5, you'll start experiencing moments of genuine calm during situations that used to overwhelm you. Week 6, people will start noticing and commenting on your emotional maturity. You handled that really well. Week 7, you'll catch yourself naturally using techniques without having to think about them consciously. Week 8, you'll have your first major success. handling a genuinely difficult situation with grace and wisdom that surprises you. Common challenges. This phase, I'm getting cocky and then regressing. This is normal. You have a few wins, relax your practice, then get triggered and react poorly. The solution? Consistency over intensity. Never skip your morning ritual, even when you feel good. The techniques feel mechanical. They should. At this stage, you're building new skills. They'll feel natural in phase 3. For now, embrace the awkwardness. It means you're learning. People are testing me more. Yes, as you change, the systems around you try to pull you back to familiar dynamics. This is actually a sign you're making real progress. Stay committed. Phase 3, days 61 to 90. Integration, becoming the person. This final phase is where technique becomes identity. You're no longer someone who uses response skills. You're someone who embodies conscious response as your natural way of being. Daily practice structure, morning ritual. 10 minutes. Minutes 1 to 5. Your choice of breathing pattern. By now, you know which patterns serve you best. Use what you need on any given day. Minutes 6 to 10. Gratitude and intention. Reflect on how much you've changed in the past 60 days. Feel genuine appreciation for your commitment. Set your intention to be a source of calm and wisdom for everyone you encounter today. Throughout your day, you're now actively modeling emotional mastery for others. Be the person who stays calm when everyone else is stressed. Be the one who finds solutions when others see only problems. Be the voice of wisdom in conflicts. Be the presence that helps others feel safe and regulated. You're not doing this for recognition. You're doing it because this is who you've become. Teaching others. One of the most powerful ways to deepen your own mastery is to share what you're learning. When someone mentions struggling with stress or reactivity, share a technique that's helped you. When a friend gets triggered, model the pause and see if they notice. Teaching forces you to understand concepts at a deeper level and reinforces your identity as someone who has mastered these skills. Evening practice, 5 minutes. Integration. Journal. Who was I today? Not what you did. Who you were. One moment I'm proud of one area. I'm still growing in how did my presence impact others today? Week by week milestones. Week 9. Conscious response feels increasingly natural. You catch yourself thinking, wow, I would have completely reacted to that 6 months ago. Week 10. You have multiple examples of difficult situations where you responded with wisdom that genuinely surprises you. Week 11. People start seeking you out for advice or perspective during their own challenges. Week 12. You realize that responding consciously isn't something you do anymore. It's simply who you are. The final week assessment. In the last week of your 90-day protocol, take time to reflect on your transformation. Review all your journal entries from day 1 to day 90. Notice patterns in your growth. Identify situations that used to trigger you intensely that now barely register. Write a letter to yourself, describing who you've become. Set intentions for continued growth beyond day 90. Real-world mastery. Handling specific situations. Let me give you specific playbooks for the most common challenging situations you'll face. These are the practical applications of everything we've covered. Playbook 1. Workplace criticism. The situation. Your manager or colleague criticizes your work publicly. Physical response you'll feel: face flushing, chest tightening, urge to defend. The response protocol: pause, 2 seconds. Take 1 deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Label, 1 second. I'm noticing defensiveness. Reframe, 2 seconds. They're giving me information that could improve this. Respond, thank you for bringing that up. Can you help me understand specifically what concerns you so I can address them? What this accomplishes: demonstrates emotional maturity, gathers useful information, keeps focus on solutions, builds your professional reputation. Playbook 2. Relationship conflict, the situation. Your partner says something that feels critical or dismissive. Physical response you'll feel: hurt in chest, urge to withdraw or counter-criticize. The response protocol: pause, 3 seconds. 3 deep breaths. Remember this person loves you. Curiosity, 2 seconds. What might be going on for them right now? Vulnerability: I notice what you said brought up some hurt for me. I want to understand what's happening for you. Are you feeling stressed about something? What this accomplishes: invites connection instead of creating distance, addresses underlying needs, demonstrates emotional safety, deepens intimacy. Playbook 3. Truly difficult people. The situation: someone is being aggressive, manipulative, or unreasonable. Physical response you'll feel: anger, urge to fight back or flee. The response protocol: pause, 3 seconds. Breathe. Remember, their behavior is about them, not you. Boundary setting: I can see you feel strongly about this. I want to find a solution, and I think we'll be more effective if we keep this conversation respectful. Can we do that? If they continue: I'm going to step away for now. Let's continue this when we can both approach it calmly. What this accomplishes: protects your dignity, maintains your center, sets clear boundaries, removes yourself from toxicity without being reactive. Playbook 4. High-pressure performance. The situation: job interview, presentation, performance evaluation. Physical response you'll feel: anxiety, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing. The pre-performance protocol: 10 minutes before, box breathing for 5 minutes. Visualize yourself performing with confidence. 5 minutes before, physical grounding: feel your feet, roll your shoulders, stand tall. 1 minute before, remind yourself, I'm prepared, I'm capable. This is an opportunity, not a threat. During performance, focus on serving your audience, not monitoring your anxiety. Breathe deeply between points. What this accomplishes: shifts from threat mode to challenge mode, accesses your full intelligence, demonstrates confidence. Maintaining momentum, the lifelong practice. Here's the beautiful truth: after 90 days of dedicated practice, conscious response becomes significantly easier. But it's not automatic forever without maintenance. Think of it like physical fitness. You can get in great shape with 90 days of focused training, but you need ongoing practice to maintain it. The maintenance protocol after day 90. Daily, 5 minutes. Morning breathing practice, just 2 to 3 minutes. Evening check-in, 1 response win from the day weekly, 15 minutes. Review your patterns from the week. Identify 1 area for deeper practice. Visualize handling upcoming challenges. Monthly, 30 minutes. Deep reflection on your growth. Assess situations that still trigger you. Adjust your practices based on what you're learning. Ongoing, continue using minor irritations as training opportunities. Seek slightly uncomfortable situations to practice in. Share what you're learning with others. Surround yourself with people who model emotional maturity. Signs: you're maintaining mastery. Problems that used to trigger intense reactions now feel like minor inconveniences. People regularly comment on your calm presence. You catch yourself responding wisely without having to think about techniques. Difficult conversations feel like opportunities rather than threats. Your baseline stress level is noticeably lower. You sleep better because you're not replaying reactive moments. Your relationships deepen because emotional safety is consistent. The ultimate vision: life from unshakable presence. Let me paint you a picture of what becomes possible when response mastery evolves into true presence. Imagine waking up each day with deep inner stability, a calm center that remains constant regardless of external circumstances, not because nothing difficult happens, but because you've developed the capacity to meet whatever arises with wisdom and grace. Imagine moving through challenging conversations with genuine curiosity instead of defensiveness. Seeing criticism as information rather than attack. Experiencing conflict as opportunity for deeper connection rather than threat to be avoided. Imagine your professional life characterized by steady advancement because people trust you with increasing responsibility. They know that when pressure hits, you'll be part of the solution. They seek your perspective during difficult decisions because your clarity isn't clouded by reactivity. Imagine your relationships marked by authentic intimacy because emotional safety exists consistently. Your partner feels safe being vulnerable with you. Your children come to you with their real struggles. Your friends trust you during their difficult moments. Imagine your physical health improving because your nervous system isn't constantly flooded with stress hormones. Better sleep, stronger immune function, lower blood pressure, reduced inflammation. These aren't just theoretical benefits. They're measurable changes that happen when you shift from chronic reactivity to conscious response. Imagine the compound effect over years. Opportunities that come your way because of your reputation for emotional maturity. Relationships that deepen rather than deteriorate. Challenges that strengthen rather than deplete you. Growth that accelerates because you're learning from every experience rather than being overwhelmed by it. This isn't fantasy. This is the natural result of consistent practice of the principles we've explored together. You become someone who can feel fear while still thinking clearly, who can feel angry while still communicating skillfully, who can feel overwhelmed while still acting effectively. You develop what ancient wisdom traditions call unshakable presence, a deep inner stability that allows you to be fully engaged with life while remaining fundamentally at peace. Your invitation, the next moment, here's what I want you to understand as we close. Everything changes with your very next response. Not tomorrow, not after you finish this training, not when circumstances are perfect or you feel ready. Right now. The next time something triggers you, you have a choice. And that choice will either reinforce your old patterns or strengthen your new ones. Every pause you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every breath you breathe consciously is an investment in your future self. Every response you choose wisely is evidence that transformation is real and happening. The gap between stimulus and response is always there, always available, always offering you the power to choose. The question is, will you step into that gap? Will you trust that in that split second of pause lies the difference between the life you've been living and the life you're capable of creating? Will you commit to the daily practice that rewires your brain, rebuilds your identity, and transforms your entire experience of being human? I believe you will, because you've read this far, because something in you knows this is true, because you're tired of being controlled by your reactions and ready to step into your power as a conscious responder. The 90-day protocol starts whenever you decide it starts. The transformation begins with your next breath, your next pause, your next conscious choice. You are not broken. You are not uniquely damaged. You are simply someone who is learning to access the extraordinary capacity that exists in every human being. The capacity to respond to life with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion. And that capacity, it's about to change everything. Welcome to the rest of your life, friend. Welcome to freedom.